Finance Minister and senior leader of the Congress, P Chidambaram, in an exclusive interview to NDTV Sunitra Chaudhary, has said he is disappointed with the Supreme Court ruling on criminalizing gay sex. The top court set aside the Delhi High Court verdict that decriminalized gay sex by striking down an archaic law. Chidambaram has said the UPA will now look at all options and that the Attorney General will even consider a curative petition.
With me, Senior Minister P Chidambaram, who was also part of the GOM which looked into this issue. So your first reaction to this judgment?
It's disappointing. It saddens me. The current Section 377 was made in the year 1860. It reflected the social and moral values of that day and age. Besides, our knowledge of psychology, physiology, genetics in 1860 was extremely poor. But today, in the year 2013, with so much knowledge about human psychology, human physiology, human genetics, to say that there is something like intercourse against the order of nature, and that is the social and moral value of today, and that therefore should be the legal value of today, is, I think, completely outdated, completely retrograde. I think the High Court judgment was a well-researched, cogently reasoned judgment. The Union government accepted the judgment, which is why we did not file an appeal against the judgment.
Yes.
In fact, we stood up in court and said, we accept the judgment, we are here to assist you on deciding the constitutionality. I think the bench should have referred it to a 5-judge bench, and they should have looked into all aspects of law. The law cannot be static. An interpretation of law cannot be static. What we have done is gone back in time to 1860, and I am therefore terribly disappointed.
What is the option now, sir? Because they've obviously, in their 98-page judgment, they say that you also had an opportunity because you changed the law for the entire thing of the anti-rape law, and you yet retained Section 377. That's what the judgment says. Because
the High Court judgment read down Section 377 only in a limited way. It decriminalized homosexuality only among consenting adults and in private. Therefore, there was no need to amend Section 377. You read down Section 377 and 377 can remain, because between non-consenting adults, it will still remain a crime. So there was no occasion to amend the section. And the amendment of the section would have been necessary only after the final court has pronounced it. Since the matter was pending in the Supreme Court, there was no occasion to amend it. So the Supreme Court should have applied current social and moral values. For example, a court that has recognized live-in relationships,
yes,
that has recognized the legitimacy of children born out of wedlock, how can such a court say that only a minuscule fraction are LGBT? By one account, there are at least 100 million people in this country who would fall under the LGBT category. Be that as it may, even assuming it is a minuscule fraction, the Constitution protects the fundamental rights of every citizen.
Yes.
Even if it's one citizen, his right should be protected. I think the way out now is for the Attorney General to advise the government. I think there is a way out. I think the government should ask for a review or file a curative petition.
Government should?
Yes. And ask that the matter be considered by a bench of 5 judges.
What about the legislative options, sir? An ordinance or perhaps a bill?
A legislative option remains. But as I said, if you read 377 down in a limited way, there is no need for legislative changes. But that option still remains. But I think some of the reasoning of the judgment is worrying. For example, in I think a case decided by the US Supreme Court about 6 months ago, Hollingsworth versus Perry. They said and I think it's very, very relevant statement. Freedom resides in the people. Government or the parliament does not give freedom to the people. Actually, government and parliament, when they act, restrict the freedom of the people. Freedom resides in the people. So it is not granting freedom to the people, it is recognizing that freedom resides in the people. LGBT community has the freedom to practice sex in the manner they wish to. As long as it's among consenting adults,
Yes.
they are entitled to. And that freedom cannot be taken away by law. Or the law should not be interpreted as taking away that freedom.
It's interesting you cite an American judgment, because one of the things that the judgment has said is, how can we look at, because they said Justice Shah, who gave that landmark judgment, depended a lot on international, and our situation was different. So it's interesting yours.
Our situation is not different. In 1860, our situation may have been different. As I said, our knowledge today of human physiology, human psychology, human genetics is so much more that to say in the year 2013 that everybody must have the same sexual orientation, I think is an absurd proposition.
Sir, because you were in the GOM, I wanted to ask you, is the politics difficult? Will you have problems, because even something which the UP has been completely committed to and tried to bring in, which was the women's reservation, you failed. Do you think something like this with all your allies, will it be difficult to...
I don't know. Parliament is not passing any laws. There's no indication that they will pass any laws in this session. I doubt that whether they will pass any laws in the next session. But why should LGBT community live in fear and live in quote-unquote shame for the next 7 or 8 months? There's no reason for that.
It was interesting that the GOM, some say you could have taken a much more assertive position instead of saying, okay, we are not going to challenge this.
No, we did. We did take an assertive position. The assertive position was, we are not filing an appeal against the judgment.
That was the assertive
That is the assertion. We accept the judgment of the High Court.
Was there complete unanimity in the UPS?
Complete unanimity in the GOM and in the cabinet.
Entire cabinet?
Yeah, there was some discussion, of course. There will be discussion when 30, 40...
What about religious groups? Many people are saying, or because a lot of the petitioners in the parties do this in this case, are a lot of the church, other groups as well. Is that something which weighs on your mind?
See...
Especially before an election, I guess.
I don't think this has anything to do with elections. The fact is, LGBT is a reality. You can't deny that the LGBT community is amongst us. It's in every country. It has been with us for centuries. Yet, we did not acknowledge that. I can understand if we didn't acknowledge it in 1860. I can understand if Macaulay did not acknowledge it in 1860 when he made the penal code. But to say that today the society should not acknowledge the LGBT community is, I think, extremely sad and extremely disappointing.
What hope does the community have from the UPS? What hope can you offer them now?
Well, as I said, we must explore ways and means in which this judgment can be reversed very quickly. Mm-hmm. Legislation is one way to reverse it, but that may take time.
Yes.
Not giving up that option of legislation.
Ordinance, perhaps?
Not giving up that option of legislation. We must explore other ways, and I'm willing to sit with my colleagues to find out if there are other ways in which this judgment can be reversed.
Thank you, sir.